மாணிக் பாஷான்னு வாழ்க்கையில மகத்தான நாள்.
Hello there, and we welcome you once again to the Intermission Podcast, where Narendra, aka Dodi, and I, Nitin Sundar, discuss all things content. Hello Naren, great to be chatting with you once again. What have you been up to recently?
Hey, we go through this every time, macha. என் பேர் நரேன். எனக்கு என்னோட பேர் இருக்கு.
Epic Max. Dodi, Naren, Baasha bhai. Why don't you please tell us what today's episode is going to be about?
So, we are going to pay tribute to the one and only superstar whose birthday is on December 12th. We're going to be celebrating his birthday today with one of his great super hits, Baasha.
ஐயா, என் பேர் மாணிக்கம். எனக்கு இன்னொரு பேர் இருக்கு.
So that was like the perfect intro, and the Intermission Podcast dedicates this episode to celebrating the awesomeness that is Rajnikanth.
Why don't you set the stage a little bit? We're going to be talking about Baasha, right? So what was happening in 1995 in the Tamil industry? What was happening with Rajni? Was he on a rise? Was he on a fall? What was happening with everybody else? Can you set the scene for us before we get into Baasha itself?
Absolutely right. I grew up in Chennai in the 90s. In 1995, I was in class 5, bang in the middle, I should say, of the absolute zenith of Rajini's stardom. He's obviously had a massive career as a superstar, but if you were to sort of chart the graph of Rajini's career, I would say 1995, soon after when Baasha released, was probably the absolute peak of it. There were obviously, huge phases before and after that, but that I think was the absolute zenith. People from Tamil Nadu will all have their own stories of growing up with Rajni, right? But this is what I remember. Back then, even as a 10-year-old, you always had two camps in school. You had the Rajni fans and you had the Kamal fans.
புத்தி பறக்குது, பகை இல்லாதவங்களுக்குள்ள யுத்தம் வெடிக்குது, அப்பம் பிள்ளையாகிறான், பிள்ளையே அப்பனா இருக்கிறான், ஆபத்து அழகாகுது, காலம் திகச்சு போகுது. இது எல்லாம் மீறியும் ஒரு முக்கியமான கேள்வி தொக்கி நிக்குது. உங்களுக்கு ரஜினி பிடிக்குமா, கமல் பிடிக்குமா?
So I was, 10 years old at that stage? This is the kind of discussion amongst boys of my age. During class break, sitting in the back, we're all having arguments. Are you a Kamal fan? You loser. Fights would break out, right? Are you a Rajni fan? Where is your class, right? Yeah. It was very simple. If you were a Kamal fan, you were cool and classy. You were highbrow, you were refined, and you had good taste, right? But you were also in the minority. If you were a Rajni fan, you were one of the masses. You were a son of the soil. You were as local gets. As a school kid, I must say, I fell into the Kamal camp.
RT versus Masi.
RT, yes, over Masi. I used to be at the forefront of these fights, by the way, defending Kamal Hassan and why he was better. He could dance, he could sing, he could do so much more. Rajni was just, at the end of the day, punchline and funky mannerisms and all that. I was in general massively outnumbered. And then Baasha came during a phase when Rajnikanth's filmography was very much veering towards the superstar cult, right? And I think every movie that he was being a part of was I would say progressively getting bigger and more ambitious than the previous one. Yeah, looking back, I would say it definitely would be in my top 3 Rajnikanth movies, right? I'm not even sure what the other two would be, but Baasha would definitely be probably my top Rajni film across that career. That's the context in which Baasha came out. Massive success. I think it had a digital re-release a couple of years back. That also was a massive success, right? This was pre-COVID. People went back to the theaters. Lots of people who, such as me, I would say, who are probably in their 30s, 40s, 50s now, going back to the theaters and reliving their experience of watching Baasha when it first came, and it was a huge hit all over again. That's what the scene was like in 1995. What do you recall of that era?
Let me go a little further behind, actually. Not being Tamilian and not having lived in Chennai. So when I was a kid back in Dubai, I think my first real recollection of Rajnikanth, beyond knowing that he was a Tamil superstar, and I think the first time I came across him was largely through his Hindi movies. There was a Hindi movie called Giraftar. Have you heard of this movie?
I have heard of Giraftar. Is that, that's the movie with him and Sunny Deol, right?
No.
No,
that's another one. Oh, I remember that also. Okay, fine. But no,
No,
him and Sunny is Chalbaz, which is the Sridevi double role. The standard Sita or Gita one.
Which I've watched actually. It's a fun movie. I watched it recently.
Yeah. So he's the one in the poor Sridevi's side. Yeah. So Giraftar has Amitabh, Rajni, and as Amitabh's younger brother. Want to guess?
Kamal Hassan, yes.
Yes, this is that movie. So Rajni doesn't have much of a role here. He's actually he plays the Anwar Baasha to Amitabh in this. So he's there in the first half. He gets killed by the villain, and Amitabh goes to jail and finally takes revenge for him, who's the same villain that the family is battling anyway, whatever, etc. He's a cop and he does the whole cigarette thing and all of that. And I remember that. So that I know as a trademark move. I think Giraftar was one. Of course, Chalbaz, like we spoke about, Andha Qanoon. Much later, one more movie that we'll talk about, I think, in more detail as we speak about Baasha. During my school years, it was largely this. I didn't actually have access to any of his Tamil movies. I think I may have seen one or two, when a neighbor said, oh, you should watch this movie, and they gave us, a VHS of it, and we would watch it. But it wouldn't make much sense. We would just watch for the overall, we wouldn't get the dialogue. But we would watch the overall listen. Again, there, I suspect I've probably seen a few more Kamal movies than Rajni movies at that time. I'm fairly certain I saw Nayagan as a kid when it came out.
Good man, you're from my camp then.
Once I went to college and I was in Chennai, I think then is when things started changing. I started to, of course, understand a bit of Tamil. I saw the whole these two camps of Kamal versus Rajni, because he had a lot of local classmates as well from Chennai, and we started watching movies in the theaters and everything else. So I think from there is when I really started to get to know about Rajni. Obviously, it's a little later. It's post 97.
And many years later, of course, you worked at UTV and you were on the other side of the film business. I would say probably at a very interesting time in Indian cinema, around the years of 2010 types, right? So did Rajnikanth come up in any conversations then?
So I was in Bollywood from about 2008 to 11, and then a little longer after that as well, peripherally. It was 2010, and I remember very distinctly when Endiran came out. It got this huge worldwide release, and people are projecting all sorts of numbers from it. We look at what's going to happen the next month, the next 2 months, the next 3 months. So you're always tracking what else is happening in the industry, like competition tracking, right? Endiran was really throwing numbers off for everyone. And I think everybody in Bombay knew of the phenomenon that was Rajnikanth, but had not paid attention to it or given it its due. It was Endiran really that got everybody to sit up and notice and say, okay, this is not just numbers from one small state. This is actually, because the international numbers really went skyrocketing during the Endiran days. And I used to handle international markets at that point. So a lot of conversations used to go around this. I was kind of the token South Indian in the office. I used to get asked all the questions about Rajni, and not that I knew a lot more than anyone else, but definitely more than anyone else. And I think it was Endiran that really changed the perception of Rajni in Bombay. I would say in some sense that was the start of changing the perception overall towards the South as well, because after that is when, even all the other Telugu movies also, and generally explaining the phenomenon of South Indian movies as distinct from Bollywood. I remember having that conversation with an American person at that point, and explaining that there's a specific type of hero worship and craze and following that happens, the two big languages for movies, at least Tamil and Telugu, that you may or may not see in specific Bollywood.
Yeah, we should get to that phase of Rajni's career, because I interestingly feel that his sway on the Tamil audience actually was already very much on the wane by around 2010, right? Because you have Ajit and Vijay who dominate the box office. The Rajni Kamal era was truly over by then.
Yeah, he had already aged out. And in fact, I remember some people in my office looking at publicity photos of Rajni, which would be him in a press conference, and he's looking like he looks, right? Yeah. Not like made up. And it's like, what is happening? This guy, he's so old, whatever.
Yeah. Which is part of the story as well. Yeah.
Yeah, but I remember telling them, we know how some of our stars look and the kind of makeup they put just to come out in a press conference as well. It's one thing to be on the screen. It's another thing to be yourself in person. And they embrace it a lot more down there. Rajni has embraced it fully. as compared to any of the big stars that we see in Bollywood. And this guy here is just like, this is who I am, take it or leave it. And, you know, my movie persona is different from my own persona, which is not something that they've really done had really done in Bollywood at that point, where there was a distinction between star on screen versus star in person.
And that's part of the reason why people love Rajni.
Yep.
You're also right that in general in South India, I think even the big stars, things are probably changing now, but even now if you see Vijay Sethupathi, for instance, at an awards function, he's probably wearing, you know, floaters and some ripped jeans.
Though I think Vijay Sethupathi potentially, any case, an outlier. I guess the question would be, would Ajit or a Surya or whatever look more casual? And
they do, in a sense, yes. If you compare them with Bollywood, they definitely are a little more casual, right? There's this whole joke. If you show up at a South Indian wedding, there will always be a few guys who have just shown up in t-shirts with, you know, chappals on, right? It is just a way, it is just a thing. It's a thing in the South, right? And obviously Rajni takes it to the next level. Talking about Baasha or talking about Rajni, you really have to start the story right at the beginning. How Rajni came into movies itself is very interesting, right? When he first appeared, I think, in the late 70s in a film, and as would many of his initial movies be, this also was actually a Kamal Haasan movie where Rajni was playing a role. And Rajni himself has said this in many interviews. By the time he had entered movies in the 70s, Kamal was already a big star. And Rajnikanth got this 10-minute role in a K. Balachandar movie called Apurva Ragangal, right? And the way his very first scene, he comes in the last 10-15 minutes of the movie, right? He's like a surprise addition to the movie. So he's the heroine's ex-husband who comes back in. And what was interesting about Rajnikanth's appearance in the movie is the way he actually makes an entrance, right? He throws open gates and walks into the house, which, by the way, is a scene that was reprised in Peta a few years back, which had a lot of throwbacks to older Rajni movies. Yeah, so Rajni had been sort of discovered by K. Balachandar, right? He was at the Chennai Film Institute. Balachandar noticed this young, extremely inventive looking chap who could, you know, do mannerisms and had a very distinctive style of talking, walking, etc. He, being the visionary that he is, probably noticed something in this guy. This person who doesn't conform to any sort of rule as to what a conventional hero should look like. Initially, Rajnikanth wasn't thought of as hero material either. In fact, his original name is Shivaji Rao Gaikwad, right? Yeah. And the first thing Balachandar did was to tell Rajni that he needs a different name, right? And he actually gave him 3 names. He gave him Chandrakant, Suryakant and Rajnikanth, which are all characters from a play written by K. Balachandar, which has also been made into a movie called Major Chandrakant, I believe, right? And Rajni, of the 3, chose Rajnikanth to be his name. The character Rajnikanth in the play is someone with dark shades, but Rajnikanth picked that character as the standout one. It is also the most unusual of the 3 names, if you think about it, right? I've only come across people named Rajnikanth after Rajnikanth became a thing. It's not like you're named Sachin or Virat or whatever, right? Those are still common names, but Rajnikanth is Rajnikanth. That's where he came. And this again is another story narrated by Rajni, right? A lot of those early movies were Balachandar movies where Kamal was the hero. Rajni was either Kamal's friend or the antagonist or, you know, the sidekick or comic relief. And apparently when Kamal was rehearsing or shooting, KB would tell Rajni, like, Avana paathu padi, learn from him, look at him, learn how to act from him, and that's what I want you to do. I believe they did about 17 or 18 movies together, and some of them are very, very memorable movies. I think we have referenced 1 or 2 of them in our podcast in the past. Nenaithale Nikum, where, you know, the 10 cigarette flicks happens, for instance. And there is Avalapaditan, there is Avargal, bunch of other movies, right? 16 Vayadinile, etc.
He did a bunch of villain roles also, right? Out and out villain roles as well.
Absolutely. Apparently, at one stage, Kamal Haasan told Rajnikanth, we need to now go our separate ways. Because if you don't, that's going to stunt your growth, because you will always remain, you know, the second hero or the sidekick. You obviously are big enough now to be your own hero. And Rajni, by the way, to be frank, was already doing those kinds of movies, right? He was already becoming a star in his own right. He had started playing the hero separately as well. But Kamal said, we need to, you know, put our foot down and tell producers and tell directors that we won't appear together in movies, because they will otherwise split our remuneration and the fame that is due to us. And Rajni, being the magnanimous person that he is in public, very often credits Kamal Haasan for doing that, because otherwise this was a very comfortable sort of niche for him to continue to operate in. And then of course, Rajni would go on to become not arguably also, I think all the numbers would bear it out, definitely the bigger star. The other thing that's interesting is the sort of trajectories that their careers took, right? So when Rajni came into cinema, which was in the 70s, even the early 80s, right? That was peak Kamal Haasan period, right? He was playing the regular superstar, you could say, right? He was playing the romantic hero, the guy that the girls would want to take home to their mother. And Rajni had to get noticed, right? He had to find out his own niche, which he did. Come the 80s is when Kamal Haasan actually slowly started to break away from that mold. You had a Munram Birai Sadma in 1983, which won the National Award. You had Nayagan later. You had Apurva Sagodharargal and I would say Pesum Padam, etc., which are all more experimental, unconventional movies.
Other than Nayagan, it was Pesum Padam, which came out as Pushpak, which was the other one we'd seen, so we knew.
That is the one movie which did not require subtitles and hence traveled well across the country. Yeah. Kamal was going into this phase where he was starting to do more of the experimental kind of stuff. I have already made my cash and I made my name as a regular actor or conventional actor. Maybe now I'll do my experiments. I'll start doing things that are more. I'll push the boundary. Which, by the way, is how every regular South Indian actor has broadly functioned, right? And I take the example of, say, Dhanush, for instance. Established himself as a regular star, doing the regular kind of role, beating up baddies and all of that, right? The quintessential masala movies. And it's now, I would say, in the last 10 years that Dhanush has started pushing the boundary. It's the exact opposite with Rajni, right? If you look at the early part of his career, all those movies that I mentioned that he did with Kamal Haasan, right? If you watch them now, Kamal Haasan is actually insufferable in those. He's playing the same role again and again, right? He has very similar set of stock mannerisms that he's using. He's obviously playing the romantic hero, right? Kadal Mannan was the phrase that was used for Kamal Haasan. So he's always that person that the girl is pining for. He's doing this usual stuff. Rajni in every movie is coming up and doing entirely new stuff, right? Like, he's bringing so much of energy onto the screen. The way he delivers dialogue is so different. There are a bunch of these monologues and there are clips on YouTube which we should probably splice into this podcast.
In the liberty, equality, எதுவுமே எனக்கு தெரியாது. ஆனா ஒண்ணு, ரசிக்கப்பட வேண்டியது, ருசிக்கப்பட வேண்டியது ரெண்டு தான். ஒன்னு மது, இன்னொன்னு மாது. பிறப்பிலையும் சரி, பழக்க வழக்கத்திலையும் சரி, படுக்கறையிலும் சரி. ஆணும் பொண்ணும் சத்தியமா சமமா இருக்கவே முடியாது. முக்கியமா படுக்கறையில சமத்துவத்துக்கு இடமே கிடையாது.
Where Rajni just completely comes in for 2 minutes and steals the show, right? Yes, he's sharing screen space with a bigger actor at that point in time, but Rajni is the guy who is really stealing the show. And he kept doing that, right? And that's what actually built the profile for him, the anti-hero role, the sidekick, the comic personality and all of that. Then slowly he started becoming the hero, and then a couple of movies clicked and became super hits. I think Murattu Kalai probably was one of the first movies that broke through for him. And then he started getting typecast, right? And he went into that phase, I would say, probably late 80s, all the way up to Padayappa, which came end of 90s. 99 or 2000 is when Padayappa came. And onward also. I don't think that the trope changed, but I think the glory run really for Rajni was those years. I would say the 12, 13 years from the late 80s to 2000. And Baasha came bang in the middle of that. In fact, on either side of Baasha, right, you had a bunch of movies. You had Annamalai, you had Muthu, you had Padayappa, like I mentioned, etc. All of those have very, very similar-ish storylines also. And Rajnikanth pretty much plays the same role in each of those. Yes, there would be one new punchline each time. There would be one new mannerism each time. But if you actually look at these two, if you watch Annamalai and Muthu, right, and you change a few details around, they're broadly the same movie. and you will see that repeating. Right? Padayappa is again similar. Linga, which came much later, very, very similar storyline. He's often playing, the poor, lovable simpleton who is manservant of a very rich zamindar type person. And then through circumstance or due to some part of his lineage that was hidden, he realizes that he's actually, a wealthy successor to a big family. And then, he gets to don that mantle, right? So it is rags to riches story, but in a slightly different way, right? And there was also this growing tiredness with Kamal Haasan. Not just as an actor. In fact, I don't think so much as an actor, but as a person, as the personality that Kamal Haasan was. He was a Brahmin by birth. which doesn't sit well with Dravidian ideologies, right?
Yeah.
In Tamil Nadu, this matters a lot. I don't want to go out of my depth or sound out of my depth here, so some of this might be a surface level reading, but it is also basis things. I've also, grown up in Chennai and spoken to a lot of people, and this is the sort of stuff that people would say, right? And I have noticed that there was always a little bit of a hatred for Kamal Haasan amongst the staunch Brahmin communities, despite the fact that he was a Brahmin. So the Dravidians didn't like him because he was born a Brahmin. The Brahmins don't like him because he's a self-professed atheist and a rationalist, right? And he didn't conform to the idea of a family man, right? He was married a couple of times, divorced, had kids out of wedlock. His movies on screen pushed the boundaries of what was acceptable to family audience. There is this whole thing about, Kamal movies will have a kissing scene. It used to be a joke. He will kiss everyone on screen. I don't think all of this, right? So there was this resentment. I guess there was space for a son of the soil, man of the masses, who could speak directly to the people, represent their problems, look like them, larger than life, but also in real life very spiritual, very humble, simple dress, simpleton with no makeup in public, as you pointed out, right? And so Rajni ticked all of these boxes and literally came to embody that role and that persona, right?
That kind of always happens in all sorts of the movie industries, that somebody picks a persona and then that leaves space for, if you pick one side of the persona, it leaves space for somebody else to fill in another role or another space. Shah Rukh versus Amir versus Salman. Salman is Masi, Amir is the thinking guy's hero. Shah Rukh used to be the romantic guy, but now he's like floundering and trying to figure out what he needs to be. Tom Hanks versus Tom Cruise. There's always been this kind of thing, right? Paul Newman versus Robert Redford. When it comes to movies, because they're so larger than life, I think you want to see both sides. One is you want to see yourself reflected, and the other is you want to see something so new and something so different that you can't even imagine what it could have been. So there's always this at least larger two poles, and then there are a lot of little positions in between that people can take.
And it also speaks in a sense to the innate us versus them mentality that is just ingrained into human psyche, right? It's not good enough to have one superstar who everyone can back and everyone can get behind. It always helps to have an antagonist, at least in your mind, right? So you want two sides. Obviously, Rajni and Kamal, huge rivals, very unusually also have always been very, very good friends. These two careers have run in parallel and continue to run in parallel. So many parallels between them, right? So Rajni was always the more political of the two initially. And I think right from the 90s, where, there was this throwaway comment he made about Jayalalitha, which swayed the election and actually turned that election in DMK's favor. In the late 90s. And there was some history there already between Jayalalitha and Rajnikanth, coincidentally neighbors at Poets Garden. I think there are stories that say that when Jayalalitha's convoy would come into Poets Garden, it would create, traffic jams outside Rajnikanth's residence, which he was not happy about. And resentment sparked from all sorts of quarters. As it transpired, Kamal Haasan out of the blue got into politics as well. And also, in fact, went and stood in the elections and did all kinds of stuff and bombed spectacularly at the elections, not for want of trying though. Rajnikanth, meanwhile, has been dithering this way and that way. And I think the moment has now passed. I think the sway he had on the public, which I think really peaked in the late 2000s. I think Padayappa was probably the absolute peak of Rajnikanth's powers as someone who could influence things in Tamil Nadu. And which is why it's interesting that he broke through into Bollywood and the more global consciousness in the late 2000s, really closer to 2010 when Indiran happened, because that really was the last wind of Rajnikanth's career, right? Because post Padayappa, you had this phase where Baba was a flop and he had a bunch of his health issues came to roost. He had very few movies actually in the first half of the 2000s. Couple of them did not do well. Then he did Chandramukhi, which was a success that brought him back. Indiran, and before that Shivaji really was that final lease of life, right? And that movie broke through.
That's this. There's this phase where the hero who's stayed on top for too long has aged out, but doesn't want to age out on screen or whatever. And even Amitabh went through that stage. There was a string of movies, I would say, in the late 90s,
before he
2000s. Until he embraced the old age. Now, Rajni also has publicly embraced it, and in the movies still people want him to be young, but at least the new set of movies have him as a older, wiser young man. Past flashback young man, but then older guy as the main character, right? So if I think for Amitabh, it was basically getting KBC and doing.
Yeah.
He did KBC and he entered everybody's homes. It was big for a TV, for a movie star to do TV or whatever. But I think he had such a big string of flops and didn't really have a sense of identity.
Yeah.
For that time, for the 90s, that it took getting into KBC and then doing a few movies with the new bearded, I'm an older man, I'll play the dad, they can still be the hero, but they're the character.
And there are a bunch of movies which actually the best phase of Amitabh's career probably came after that. Right? At least a lot of the Amitabh movies that I have actually watched are your Black and Sarkar. And those kinds of movies where he really shines, right? He comes into his own. Obviously, the trappings of superstardom are not really holding him back.
But you're still like using the iconography, you're still using all of that. And you can now relax a bit more and your persona can do a lot more work. I guess now with what was the one set in Malaysia? That's where I feel like
Kabali, right? Yeah.
Kabali. I think from Kabali onwards is another phase.
It was, so actually if we trace that through line, right? You had Shivaji in 2007, which again, I think after Baasha, you could say it was the next big spike. Baasha Padayappa phase ke baad, it was the next big spike in his career. And then Endiran, right? Shankar obviously was able to reimagine. By the way, interesting aside for you. Do you know who was originally supposed to play Chitti the robot in Endiran? Many, many years back. And there are even costume stills that were done by Shankar in 2000 with Kamal Hassan playing the robot. That was the original plan. Yeah, and Preeti Zinta and not Aishwarya Rai was supposed to be the female actress. For some reason, that movie went into the back burner back then, and later got revived with Rajni. And I don't know if you're also aware when 2.0 came out. Before 2.0 came out, obviously with Akshay Kumar playing the antagonist. There were talks that Kamal Hassan would play the antagonist in 2.0, right? Which I don't think it went very far because they were very clear that I don't think Kamal Hassan was going to play the villain to Rajni's hero. But it would have been fun. You had Shivaji and Indiran, which gave that late resurgence, right? Almost like Sachin Tendulkar after 2007 having that late career resurgence, which nobody saw coming. That's the same thing that happened with those two movies for Rajni. And like you rightly said, that's when he registered in Bombay in a real big way as a pan-Indian phenomenon. I'm ambivalent, or rather I have mixed feelings about what that notice that Rajnikanth got in Bombay meant for Rajnikanth as a star. Because first, like I said, when I was growing up, right, in the 90s, it was never cool to like Rajni. Suddenly post 2005, 2006, it became very cool to like Rajnikanth. Right? And in a very affected sort of way, it not in an organic way at all, right? Suddenly it became cool to be a Rajni fan. Oh, you're not a Rajni fan, then you're a loser, right? And you had obviously Shah Rukh. I have many things about Shah Rukh Khan that I like, but one thing that I will never be able to forgive SRK for is for appropriating Rajnikanth not in one movie, not in two movies, but in three movies back to back, right? So you had Om Shanti Om. You had Ra.1, obviously, where Chitti just shows up pretty much to sell that movie to Tamil audiences. And you have this very irritating expression that Kareena Kapoor has, where she sort of prays to Rajnikanth, oh, Talaivar is here, so we have to pray, some shit like that. And then you had one more, you had Chennai Express, of course, with that ridiculous song and everything, right? Now, the laziest way you could appropriate Rajnikanth, but it made Rajnikanth cool, right? In its own way, it became, and it was funny, right? Because I partly also feel that all of that happened in 2010 and not, say, in the mid-90s when it should have, because the internet did not exist in the mid-90s. You could not have watched a Rajnikanth movie with subtitles, like you said, right, in the 90s. The country deserved to know at that point what a big phenomenon Rajnikanth was, because he was 10x the phenomenon back then than when this happened in 2010 or whatever. That phase was interesting, but you could clearly see he was aging out, right? By then there were other movies that bombed well. Linga, for instance, he could not pull it off. Health problems were coming in. And then Paranjit happened, right? Kabali and Kala, where he really embraces the aged venerable old man role well. And also I would argue that while those
Kabali is 15?
Around 2015, 16, I think, and Kala was 2018, right? Now, both those movies are as much Ranjit movies as they are Rajnikanth movies, and I mean that in a positive way. And they're both good films. Like Kabali is an interesting movie. Kala is I would say, an outright brilliant movie. If I were to pick a top three of Rajnikanth, Baasha and Kala would be in it. I don't know what number three would be. The best bits of Endiran and Shivaji would make it, or maybe Mundru Mugam from the early over would make it.
For me, it would be Talapati, which, by the way, is the other movie I'd seen when it came out. Talapati, somebody put in front of us and said, "Hello, you have to watch Talapati." I remember a neighbor coming home and saying, "Here's the VHS, please watch this movie." So I remember watching Talapati also. That was the other one.
I think Talapati is a great movie, a great Maniratnam movie. It's not too much of a Rajnikanth movie for me. Because it doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't make as much use of Rajnikanth as a lot of, and in fact, Rajnikanth has something else to say. So recently, when Ponniyin Selvan's audio launch happened, there's this famous clip of Rajnikanth talking about what it meant to work with Maniratnam, right? And he goes into this whole 10-minute monologue of showing up on the set for Talapati, and it's hilarious, by the way. So Rajni is obviously very self-effacing in the way he talks about his own acting and craft. He's like, so I showed up the way I always used to show up to movies. Like I had my own costume, I was wearing some shoes, and I showed up there. The director Maniratnam came and looked at me, looked at those shoes and said, "What is this? This is not in character at all." Right? And then Rajni said, "Okay, like some shoes that I had to wear, like that shot didn't even have my footwear. Like, how does it matter? I just showed up, right?" And then he'd explain how, back then I used to have these stock expressions, right? You give me emotion, I would do this. Like you laugh, you do this. Like look angry, you cry. I tried all those stock expressions with Maniratnam, and they were repeatedly he was repeatedly asking me to do it again and again and again. And I had so many takes, and I didn't know how to actually get an okay from this director, right? His standards were so high. I didn't know what to do. So I went to Kamal because he would know what I should do. I asked him, like, what is this? The director's not giving an okay at all, right? And Kamal apparently said, I knew you will run into this because I faced the same issue when we were shooting for Nayakan. Talapati for me was an outlier. It didn't come across as a Rajnikanth movie. It's obviously a great movie, of course. But Kala and Kabali unfortunately proved to be a false dawn because after that, last couple of movies were atrocious.
No, they're back to doing even this Darbar and whatever. I saw all of these.
Yeah, Darbar and Annatha were like terrible movies, and I don't have much hope for the next one.
They are back to the bad period, the trying to act young but not really returning to an old role and to use a word that you used, appropriate his star persona from earlier and just trying to cut and paste it into today's milieu. There's a point at which you can't even move that much. It's one thing to say you put makeup, but physically your body can't move. It's not easy. So I think people need to find a way to use what he is today, which I think Paranjit did much better than any of the others so far have done.
Yeah.
Even though they've been in their own way, a couple of them have been the interesting directors. With Rajni, I think he's so big that it's difficult to not think big. You have to think big budget. You have to think, it's not possible for him to do a quiet, smaller, intimate story. I mean, even we saw that with Kuselan, right? Where he was literally a special appearance and that movie got blown out of proportion and whatever else. So he's stuck in a situation where even if he wanted to, I don't know that he does, but even if he wanted to, he's not going to be allowed or able to do something a bit more smaller, intimate and...
I don't think he'll do well also in a smaller, intimate kind of role. He has to, I mean, if it is a Rajni movie, it has to be a Rajni movie. Yeah. Paranjit showed how it can be done because in Kala, you've given him obviously a big role. You've given him a Rajni role. It has, whistle-worthy moments. It has rain fight. But again, it is also the vulnerable, older sort of boss who's clearly seen all the battles in life, is battle-scarred and everything. So there is a way to write Rajnikanth into those kinds of roles. It takes a steady hand though. I don't know how many directors have the ability to do that.
Intention and ability both.
Yes. Maybe then it's time to talk about Baasha, the absolute peak of Rajnikanth's oeuvre.
Baasha, 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 Baasha.
Dodi, what are your thoughts? You had seen Baasha before this recording, right? And you'd seen it before as well, long back.
Yeah, I'd seen it multiple times. Very, very familiar with Baasha and watched it again now. At the risk of this entire, the rest of the podcast just being, holy shit, what an awesome movie. What an awesome movie, right? It's just like non-stop. The movie slaps. It just keeps going.
Slam dunk.
Yeah, the reveals, the kind of teasing of Baasha, the character coming out, all of that just marvelously done. And of course, Rajni, like you said, at the peak of his powers, and people are waiting to see what will happen. I remember even when Baasha came out, the whole auto thing. I didn't have much experience of Chennai in 1995, but I saw Baasha in Dubai when I was still in school. I got a hold of the VHS. And I watched it, and I remember the stories of, like, somebody had to give me even context saying that autos in Chennai and, the pricing and the
yes.
like a Tamil friend had to give me the context of that and then say that, there was that whole story that after Baasha came out, auto drivers for some time became, I don't know if that's apocryphal or true, but they became a bit more amenable to reasonable pricing and proper this thing because...
if anything, the prices went up.
Fair enough. But yeah, movie still slaps. Apart from the fact that it's some of it is dated for obviously it's a good 20+ year old movie. But apart from that, it works quite well. I have some issues with the climax, but and the fun is still the fun.
Yeah.
I don't know, and maybe you can shed a little bit of light for this. Were the songs really a big hit standalone away from the movie? Nothing really catches like style I can remember. Of course, the first Autokaran,
yes. No, all the songs actually, it was a very successful album. Okay. And I would also say it was a fairly inventive album. Because
for that, at that point, I had already hit the A.R. Rahman and the Rojas and all of that. So I used to listen to every A.R. Rahman album in 95, 96. So Roja onwards, literally heard every album for the first 5-6 years of Rahman's character. So for me at least, even now when I was listening, the songs apart from Style and Autokaran and the main theme of course didn't really hit, but we can get into that. What about you?
One of Rajni's best movies. It's a movie that hasn't aged badly for me, like you said, right? If you go back and watch most Indian movies from the mid-90s, they really struggle, right? Like even I won't even like go back and watch Gentleman, for instance, right, which was a path-breaking movie when it came, roughly around the same time, Shankar's first movie. There are parts of Gentleman that look so outrageously dated now, right? And there's even true for movies that came in, I would say, in the mid 2000s. By that standard, you're right, there are parts of Baasha that have aged badly, but there is literally not a scene where Rajnikanth is doing his thing which doesn't work now. Right?
Doesn't work. Absolutely.
It absolutely still bangs. We should also actually talk about the origins of Baasha to an extent, right? Like we did watch Hum. We spoke about other Amitabh movies that led to Rajnikanth movies. Why don't you tell us more?
So Hum, obviously a big movie for Bollywood, especially with Juma Chuma and the whole idea of this Tiger versus Shekhar Bhaiya, which are the two characters he plays as Baasha versus Manikam. And Rajni playing one of the brothers in this thing as well. That's the movie I was referring to earlier. But Hum was a big hit. It was a time
I thought it was already one of those movies that bombed towards the end of Amitabh's hero run. I don't know, but that's what I was...
No, Hum was a big hit.
Okay.
But it was hitting that point. Hum also came out at a time when the director of Hum is a guy called Mukul Anand, who's also done Agnipath is Mukul Anand. He became the guy who was, I will write characters for Amitabh and he will not just play Amitabh Bachchan. Okay. Right? We're going to have a little bit of a story and a little bit of something. So Hum came out in that time, and of course Juma Chuma was a huge hit. The big thing about Hum is also it's apart from being an Amitabh movie, it's clearly a multi-starrer. It's got Rajni, it's got Govinda. They are very clearly playing second fiddle to Amitabh.
Yes.
But they're there, and in the second half they pretty much share a lot of the screen time with him. They have their own storylines and plot lines going. Compared to, let's say, Baasha, which is clearly a Baasha story or a Rajni story, which everybody else is purely supporting him. They're not really in the thing. Baasha does obviously a much better job of restructuring
It does everything. It corrects all the flaws in Hum, right? Like literally takes that, say, okay, if we were to make this a proper superhero movie, this is how we should do it. This is how you need to do it. Literally.
Exactly. This is the analogy that came to mind was, in school or college when a friend comes to you and says, Macha, show me your essay before you submit it. No, I'll rewrite in my own words, but I just want to get some ideas.
Yeah.
And then that bug
Yeah.
gets more marks. than
Exactly.
you.
Yeah.
This is that. Yes. So Baasha manages to do everything much better.
Baasha, of course, is directed also by Suresh Krishna. I would say one of those directors who understands how to make a good masala film, right? And in Tamil, he has done it multiple times with both Rajni and Kamal. So his first movie, by the way, was Satya. It's a Kamal Hassan movie where he plays the angry young man wronged by the system and all of that. It's a very, very good film. He also is the director of Alavandan, which we spoke about in our last episode. Wildly inventive movie. I don't know how much of it was Kamal Hassan and how much of it was Suresh Krishna. Not a very successful film, but a very, very watchable film. He did Annamalai with Rajnikanth before Baasha, which actually I would say was the runway for Baasha was probably laid at Annamalai. Again, another massively successful film. So it has those big whistle-worthy moments in it and all of that. And then there came Baasha, and later there was Baba, which coincidentally is also getting re-released this year on Rajni's birthday, which is a terrible movie. Please don't watch it. Watch it only for the laughs. Yeah, Suresh Krishna was the man behind all of these interesting movies. They had looked at Hum and seen, okay, what can we do with it? How do we now retrofit this into the Rajni universe? Apparently, originally Rajnikanth wanted to play a bus conductor in this movie and not an auto driver. In fact, I was just watching this Suresh Krishna interview before we started recording, and he mentions this anecdote, right, where Rajni said, I want to be a bus conductor, and he was like, how can you be a bus conductor? How do I show you mobile? How do I show you going from one part to another in the movie and all of that? It's much easier to do all of that in an auto, so you be an auto driver. Then Rajni said, okay, in that case, at least in this song where you're showing me in different characters, I definitely want to be a bus conductor in one of them. Of course, we all know Rajni was a bus conductor in Bangalore before his friends from those days actually had to scrounge together money to get him into Film Institute. But if you see the story of Baasha, right, and you spoke about the structure and how Hum was very poorly structured. The first half an hour is the past, so to speak, that Amitabh runs
it's very
away from.
linear and straightforward.
And he's not a don, right? He's a porter in the shipping yard or something.
He's just a tough guy.
Quintessential angry young man, which Amitabh was in every movie.
Character-wise, it still kind of works. That little bit of music, and when he shakes his hair out and screams and everything. That became iconic.
Yeah.
I think it all comes down to structure, right? If you write it that way, then there's no surprise for the audience. It's only a surprise for the characters within the movie to realize who he is. And for them, it's not a moment of pride. They are finding out, and as a character in the movie, I'm saying his brothers, they are finding out that he's actually a criminal, and it doesn't become very cool from their perspective. Even in Baasha, of course, again the brother is not. He has the same scene. Rajni has exactly that scene.
But he later goes on and reads the police files, and he understands exactly what the legacy was. But that's a great point that you make, right? In the original, he's a porter. It's literally the story of an angry man caught in the wrong circumstances, committing what is on paper a crime, and then hiding to escape, right? That's pretty much the story. That's the through line of Hum. In Baasha, it is the story of a king, a don, who then literally goes incognito because of a promise he made to his father. It, in fact, borrows from the Ramayana to an extent, right? It is, he goes into Vanvas and he tries to stay low, and he literally abhors any kind of, he doesn't get into trouble, stays away from violence throughout, all because of the promise that he made to his father. That's pretty much it. Until he gets ferreted out, again, in service of keeping his family safe and protecting them. That's what brings him out eventually. And that's where the mythic mass beat really comes out in Baasha. And there is so much that they get right in this movie. We all saw the trailers, and I remember the first poster of Baasha when it came out was Rajnikanth with the beard as the Don. It's the camera pointing upward, that perspective. And he has this big hound that's sitting next to him, right? Which comes for exactly one scene in the movie. And you see this, and so one of the reasons why Baasha really stood out when it came was, you have not seen Rajni with a beard, by the way, in years. You look at all those movies that I mentioned, right? Right up to Padayappa from Annamalai and Muthu and all of it, he has the exact same look. The same mustache. It's comfort food at that stage. In fact, in most of those movies, he's wearing a white shirt, he's wearing a veshti. Suddenly you have this movie where Rajni has entirely new costumes. The costume direction in this movie is outstanding. Even now, the waistcoats that the Dawn is wearing are something. They look so smart, right? Obviously, Rajni is able to pull them off.
Yeah, pull off.
But I mean, we should do a separate episode on the glasses that he is wearing, right? The ones without the frames, and how much they add to that character and how much Rajnikant brings to it. So we know that there is this Dawn or whatever, right? But and then you start watching the movie and you don't know there's this auto driver.
Does he become the Dawn?
It is a pre-internet era also, right? So there are no spoilers. Like you literally are watching the movie for the first time, actually don't know what the hell is happening. And in the trailer, you've seen that there is this punchline, right? You're waiting for it. I actually timed it when I watched the movie. The first time it appears in the movie is 42 minutes into the runtime. Right, and it's a throwaway where he's talking to that principal who is refusing to give a seat to his sister. You don't even know what that conversation. I remember what a moment it was like. What
they
is
close
he
the
telling
door
him? You're seeing through the glass. There is music playing, and
puts his hand out and gets.
And suddenly this guy, he starts sweating, and he's fretting and fuming. That guy who plays the principal, and you're like, what the hell is happening in there? What are they talking about? Right. So that's the first appearance of the punchline. Then he again holds back, right? It's not that after that it keeps coming. It's used very sparingly. Does it maybe 4 times in the movie. All said. The next one comes more than an hour into the film. And when does it come?
After the fight, I think.
It comes before he gets beaten up by Indran, right? By Anand Raj.
Oh, before it?
Yeah, because Janak Raj is comes and tells him, hey, shouldn't we intervene now? We can't let him beat you up. And he puts his finger up, right? With the music.
But he didn't say it.
He doesn't say it. He just puts his finger up.
Calling back to that.
Yeah, he calls back to it, right? Yeah, he doesn't say it. And after that, it only comes again in the, I think it comes at the interval block. What an interval block. Can you think of?
Interval block.
It is literally made for the interval, right? The pump, when he pulls out the pump, I'll just call it the pump fight. The build up to that scene where he finally explodes, he lands that punch where the villain comes running towards him. He bounces off his fist and goes away. And then he lifts the pump out of its thing and whacks those guys, and my goodness, dude,
I can just imagine people going nuts in the theater at that point.
Right? There is no lull at that point in the movie. You're waiting because
you're waiting to see what happens.
Good-natured auto guy, right? He's taking care of his family. There is a romantic interest. Nagma, by the way, obviously in a terrible role, but she actually brings quite a bit to it, right? Quite a bit to it.
Yeah, she brings a lot of life to it.
Far better than some of the... it is a poorly written role, but the standards have only gone further and further down, that even this looks good compared to some of the stuff you get these days. Any Ajit movie, any Vijay movie today, you will not have a heroine written this well. I'm not saying that. I mean, that's not to this movie's credit. It is rather to those movies' debit, is what I'm trying to say. But you have all of that happening. So there is not one dull moment, right? There is that scene in the first half an hour or so where the police inspector summons him, right? Because he suddenly reacts. What a scene. You spoke about the music. Tenisai Tendral Deva was a phenomenon in Tamil cinema. The 90s were pretty much his time. Ran parallel to that first decade of A.R. Rahman, and as Ilayaraja was becoming lesser and lesser of a force, you had a bunch of other music directors in Tamil. Deva was all over the place. He was doing a lot of movies at that stage with very catchy music. He also used to lift a lot of music, by the way.
Of course. I've got a list over here that I wanted to run down. But you finished saying the good things.
Even this scene that I'm talking about, where he goes to the police station to meet that cop, the Terminator music plays.
Terminator
but
music.
it is more goosebumpy than in Terminator itself. It is so perfect with Rajni walking down that corridor, splicing with the negative flashback thing, and the cop is like aghast looking at him. You don't know what the hell is happening.
The chanting.
Yeah.
All of the pieces, they use the chanting.
Baasha,
right?
yes.
Baasha.
Yeah.
There's a Terminator one. He has that Good, Bad and Ugly tune also that keeps playing. The main Baasha theme. Baasha.
Correct. Of course. There is Good, Bad and Ugly. The song...
That's Good, Bad and Ugly, but he puts Baasha in it.
Yeah.
There's James Bond also
in the song.
James Bond in the song.
But that is more a cinematic choice. I wouldn't blame the music director for it. All well done.
No, but that James Bond, the music is also there in that first bit. But it's coming from wanting to use it visually.
Choreographed as a James Bond. He even walks into the whatever.
Into the circle and shoots. And you also have, for Anthony, you have that Enigma music.
Yeah.
Right? So... correct. But yeah, he makes all of it work
All
to
was- and
Deva's credit.
It was a massively successful album. So back in the day, it doesn't matter what Rajini's intro song was, that intro song would be a massive super hit. And this one was brilliant because he's dressed up as an auto guy for the first time, and everyone has their buttons put, but not Rajnikant, because he's just put it on top of some cut banyan, and he jumps and headbutts a watermelon. That's his first, not watermelon, sorry, pumpkin, whatever it is, the big fruit that he busts. What a start. And I think the movie released on Ayuda Puja during those holidays as well. So it obviously helps. And
so that song, right, at least the video, I of course, because it's happening in front of a cinema theater, I was trying to discern what was going on there. So one is, of course, Jurassic Park has a big poster, and even
The Other Woman,
even on the thing, The Other Woman.
What is that?
No such movie exists, much. I did the deep dive. In the 90s, there's no movie. There was a TV movie in 1993 called The Other Woman, but TV movies which released as TV movies in the US would never have come to India. So I don't know where this person has picked up this name, or somebody saw it somewhere, or somebody just made up a name and put. I really want to know how this name popped up. There's a other movie now, Other Woman movie in 2017 or something, Cameron Diaz and
Dude, okay, this might have been added during the re-release. No, unlikely.
No, we've seen the older one. And you'll know, it's not like they're doing a lot of change in the movie. No, it was there.
Yeah.
I would like to know what that story is, but there was no such movie in that time. So I went like 2-3 years behind whatever I went to, because even Jurassic Park is 93. So it's not, because when you shoot versus when you put it out, whatever.
Right.
But I thought a lot of good free advertising for Jurassic Park post-release, not that they needed it anymore. They were out of theaters. I did my searching for The Other Woman and got nowhere. So if somebody knows that story of why that title has turned up there, please let us know. So
very forensic,
most
very bunk level analysis has been done. Bunk and McNulty.
Speaking of this song, some of the song videos I want to go through a little bit. I have,
we should. Please.
Questions
because
and,
they're very inventive, song videos, right? Azhag is a wonderful song to watch. It's still funny actually with Rajni and those different. I watched the whole thing, man. It's been ages since I watched these songs, so I didn't skip. Rara Ramaya is. I love that song. I keep referencing.
So what is that, by the way? I've written here, what is this 8x? Can you explain? I didn't understand it.
See, Rajni in a lot of his movies gives a lot of advice, right? Even in Autokaran, he is giving advice. In Ramaya, he is saying human life can, because it is obviously celebrating his birthday, very fittingly, as is this podcast. He is saying that human life can be split into 8 eights, right? 8 stages of human life. Each phase is 8 years long. In the first 8, Mudaletil Kalladadu Kalvi Malla, it is not an education that you get in your first 8, basically saying it is an education you get in your first 8, and so on.
Oh, this is why that day for Queen Ramonda also you said 8 8s, 64. I was wondering what you
I randomly said 8 square that day, but when I said it, I was thinking of this. Because this song is very deeply into my cultural, subconscious, I must say. Yeah, I love that song.
She comes in that, of course, mandatory swimsuit shot.
Where she ties up her hair and jumps in and the hair opens as soon as she jumps into the pool.
No, also her dive. Oh my God, she basically dives flat.
Actually, not fully flat. Not fully flat.
Most entirely flat. I saw it.
I think she did. They must have made her train like for half an hour to 45 minutes before.
Lightly to just get with this thing.
Otherwise, she would have jumped the way I jump into water, which is like fully flat, with whiplash and all of that happening.
That can't have been comfortable. That's quite painful. In the wedding, which is the wedding song? Is that that's not all good? What is
that is Tangamagan. Yeah, that song I skipped. I don't like that song.
No, but in that song, I noticed that in one of the chorus or whatever, they do this reverse movement. They've turned it around. Basically, they actually have walked away from each other, but they play the film backwards. So they're walking towards each other in that Tenet type of movement.
Okay.
So I saw that in the first chorus and I was like, okay, this might come back. Let's see what are the other things. And then I watched and there's nothing else. It just happens once. I was like, at least do it in every chorus and do a different kind of movement. They do this reverse movement in one of them.
No, I think by the time that song comes around, everyone is waiting for the climax. I'm sure even on the editing table, they're like, put this song.
Yeah, the pace kind of, if you have any complaint, it's that the pace kind of slows down later into the movie. Post the flashback.
I agree with you. It's a very rushed and also very underdone, I would say, final act. The only good thing I would say is it actually ends pretty fast after that. It's not a drawn out bad climax. It's a quick and dirty bad climax.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
In that scenario, actually, I would say Hum's climax I enjoy a little bit more. Because
Come on, with that boy randomly singing every now and then, I felt like going and slapping that boy.
Okay, the boy's a girl, first of all.
What the hell are you saying? She's playing a guy.
She's playing a girl only.
Oh,
just
really?
short-haired girl.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's playing a girl only.
In my defense, the print was not very good.
Yeah, no, but short hair only. Unnecessary short hair, they might say. It was that boycott phase
They
or
should have
whatever.
cut
But
the
it's
entire
not.
role, not just the hair.
Yeah. No, that's what. Hum has the problem of becoming a fully family movie
Yeah.
in the second
What
half.
the
So
hell are
every
they
time they
doing?
break out that stupid song.
I thought they're all going
They
to
keep
die.
that
I thought
hum.
they're happily going to
Yeah.
die or something. Then last minute, what? He throws her into the water. Some random shit.
Yeah. And,
God.
of course, that story then goes off into like
Yeah.
military and
What the hell was all
arms
that?
contracting and all that.
I even watched it. I fast forward and watched the movie. I wasn't clear.
Yeah.
Like Kader Khan is
Yeah, it's
actually
like-
playing a double role, right? At some one
Yeah,
point,
there are two Kader Khans. They try to fake the general. One is a general. They try to fake him so that he can sign the contract.
idea
for
stolen
bullshit.
from Tintin, man. You have Anu Kapoor and Anupam
Yeah.
Kher show up as the Thompson twins in that movie. The most interesting
Yes.
part of Hum for me was that. And
Good catch. But Amitabh doing Fallout so many years before
yeah.
Tom Cruise hung off a helicopter for a long time. Kesavan
Yeah.
tries to fake out saying that Rajni is the one who's killed your family or whatever.
Yeah.
But it gets immediately undone in the next scene that is discussed.
Yeah.
Like there's no...
Yeah.
I mean, you want to show that Mark Antony is smarter and not going to fall for some story. I get that.
Yeah.
But you should do it in a better way. It was just the most like... You might as well have not done it.
No, he just had the guy who was supposed to not tell
Yeah,
him.
he
That's
paid
what
him.
told
But,
him.
yeah.
Okay.
But it's not like he believed it for some time or whatever, and then he
Yeah.
found like, if you're going to show someone getting tricked or being smarter than the trick, it has to be a little better than just bringing it up. In that, it makes sense because he continuously believes that
Yeah.
Amitabh, he's come for that revenge. He's not come for the
Correct.
money or whatever else. He's come
Correct.
for revenge of his family.
Because it's a
When
family
Danny
theme
comes back.
movie. Yeah. So even the
When
bad-
Danny comes back.
Yeah.
And then finally he says, I didn't do it. Why would I do it? It's actually Anupam Kher Bakhtawar said it's actually the other guy.
Yeah.
Girdhar.
Correct.
Who
Yeah.
did it. So that ties in a little better from a story perspective because they use both of those together. But otherwise, I mean, both of them have like, that's an outrageous climax. This one is unnecessary rushed, I feel, in Baasha.
Bunch of unusual choices in this movie. I don't recall another Rajnikanth film in which the movie's name is a Muslim name. And his character has a Muslim name. Not only that, Manikam becomes Manik Baasha because after his friend Anwar dies, he takes over Anwar's role as well. So and the villain is Mark Antony, right? So the villain is a Christian choice. I don't know if the movie was trying to stay clear of any sort of religious commentary or it was trying to embrace some sort of...
I think embrace because even you see his gang, he has no Singh is there. Sardar. One Sardar is there.
Yes.
Singh.
Yeah.
So there's this whole. Of course, his team also is cool. Apart from Chanagraj, there's one Sardar, there's one karate guy. One guy is a clear karate
and they're diffusing bombs in all style and everything, right? Like, whatever
so
few scenes they
one.
have, they're like doing the entire thing. And Janakraj, of course, as the main henchman, right? Baasha Bhai Vitle, the Gurumurti, as the best.
Gurumurti.
Baasha. Baasha. Baasha.
Even in Giraftar,
Right.
his character is a Muslim character. He's a cop who his family adopts Amitabh and they both become cops together. If I'm not wrong, Amitabh, in fact, he goes few times for namaz and all in that movie with that family. Then and I think the climax also he does something because he's trying to. He wears this. Rajni has a chain which says Allah, a gold chain. After Rajni dies, he wears that chain, and the climax he uses his hands are. Oh, it's a major now. I suddenly remember. His fingers get crushed trying to save somebody else.
Okay.
In the climax, massive climax, your usual
In Giraftar.
In Giraftar,
right?
Yeah, sorry, confusing. Yeah, in Giraftar, he's trying to save Kamal from some tractor or something. Some bulldozer is going. He pushes him, and his fingers completely get broken.
Okay.
So he doesn't have use of his fingers, and he finally has the gun, and he has to kill the guy who killed Rajni.
Right.
And he's not able to pull the trigger because his fingers don't work. Through some mouth and locket, he pulls the locket of that Rajni's Allah locket through the trigger, and he pulls the locket and shoots the bad guy. That's the end of the movie.
Got it. Right. Very interesting.
Yeah. Major. Random nonsense. I had a few questions on the plot, right? Why is it 4 years?
Why is it only 4 years, or why is it?
Yeah, it seems like too short a time frame. No, it's not like the other people, the kids wouldn't remember unless the kids were always in Chennai.
No, the kids were studying in a different city, right? In fact, this comes in the conversation between his parents. When before his father meets him, she says that is why Manikam has made the kids study separately in a different city so that they don't know everything that's happening here.
Fine, that I didn't really catch, and I was like, 4 years. It's not like they wouldn't know, also, right? I mean, they know that the family is in Bombay, so they have some like clue. It's a little. You might as well have made it 15 years. What difference would have made? I'm trying to figure out why they crunched the 15-20 years of hum into 4 years here.
Fair point. Though Rajnikanth as an auto driver looks already younger than the Don.
Yeah.
So,
than the Don. I think it's only for Rajni's age.
Maybe.
It's for Manikam's age.
It's for Manikam's age. They've taken. But even hum has its own problems, right? Govinda and Rajnikanth are like toddlers.
Yeah.
Amitabh's hair just gets white. And what Rajnikanth has a kid and all, right? Doesn't make any sense. 15 years, a lot has happened in that family.
Yeah. 15 years too much, he had 4 years too less. I just found it very odd to try to figure out what was going on. எனக்கு இப்பவே நீங்க யார் பாம்பேல நீங்க என்ன செஞ்சீங்க சொல்லுங்க A couple of random comedy pieces that I noticed when Kesavan is telling Nagma, you're going to get married tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then he says, this is the boy. And then that guy comes
randomly through him. And he calls him in the mundo. Literally with headless, I don't know, person without a head.
Yeah, he just like appears from behind like it plays like some comedy pantomime, right?
Yeah. So I got lucky basically, yeah.
Even his dad, when his dad comes and meets him in his big house later.
ஏண்டா பாஷா அண்ணா பெரிய பாதுஷா நினைப்பா அந்த ஆண்டனி பத்தி இந்த ரங்கசாமி தான் தெரியும் அரசாங்கமே அவன் கையில இருக்குடா
Is that a regular thing, Badusha, to be used in
Bahadur Shah,
or was it just Baasha Badusha?
Bahadur Shah, right?
Okay.
Which is where I guess Badshah, the word itself, comes from. Not to be confused with Badusha, which is a sweet that you get in South India.
That's what it sounded to me like you were saying sweet, so I heard it that way. What you think? I was like, what? So the Tamil Badshah is Badusha. It's pronounced with the full
wait. Disambiguation. So there is Bahadur Shah Zafar, which is the Mughal emperor, right?
Yes.
I think Badshah and Baasha, not Baasha, but Badshah comes from there. The Shah Rukh Khan movie Baasha, not the Rajni movie Baasha.
Yes, the word.
Maybe the Rajni movie Baasha also etymology probably
also is a short name, potential.
Badusha is Balu Shahi. The North Indian sweet Balu Shahi is known as Badusha in South India, right?
Okay. So what is this dad saying now?
Bahadur Shah. He doesn't say Badusha, the sweet.
He says Bahadur Shah. That's what I couldn't discern that. To me, it sounded like the sweet, and I felt it was like Periya Parappa type. If you can compare people to dal, you can compare them to sweets.
Periya Pista type. Yeah, good one.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think he was going for Bahadur Shah because I've never heard people being compared to Bahadur Shah, the sweet.
Or is it because Baasha and Badusha are so close that you're sure he's saying Bahadur Shah?
But Bahadur Shah is also close enough, no? So why should you say the sweet Bahadur Shah?
Because you have pista and you have everything else. Because I don't know. Okay, fine. Anyway,
fair point.
Yeah, a couple of lines that I wrote down.
They could have gone with badam in that case. It's also close to Baasha and it is a nut. So randomly
keeping within the theme.
Yeah. I mean, you want people to join dots, give them fewer dots, right? You can go from...
Correct, fair.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
அவனுக்கு அவருக்கா நல்லவங்கள ஆண்டவன் சோதிப்பான் ஆனா கை விட மாட்டான் ஆனா கெட்டவங்களுக்கு நிறைய கொடுப்பான் ஆனா கை விட்டுடுவான் பாத்தியா ஆனா கை விட்டுட்டான்
मुबारक पाशा भाई मुबारक मान लिया यार पेरियाल नहीं.
Is this Raghuvaran's best role? I believe this is up there. He is so good.
I have heard that.
Yeah.
I have not seen enough Raghuvaran movies at all, but he is outstanding here. That is there. I've seen a few, but not enough. But he's 100% outstanding here. Like he makes...
good. He sells. And that's one thing, by the way, during that phase, that Rajnikanth did very well. You would imagine that someone who is a big star would be very insecure about giving equal star power, screen presence. Rajni actually realized that having a good antagonist was very important to making him shine. and his movies do well. So you have Ramya Krishnan play Neelambari in Padayappa. She has significant amount of screen time and impact, right? You have Jyotika in Chandramukhi. Obviously, in that role, you do need the possessed girl to come out and all of that. Generally, it was a theme in Rajni movies. You have strong villains, right? In this film, Anand Raja has a very short role. The guy who plays Indran, right? He has a very short role. Yeah. But he's done it really well, right? He totally sells that role, right?
He's menacing. He comes
so
enough
menacing
times to
and does a very good job, right?
Sense of menace.
And because he's literally the only villain you have in the first half of the movie. Because Raghuvaran only shows up in the second half, and that's so good, man.
That's I think when I complain about the pacing of the second half also, it's a lot held up by Raghuvaran appearing back from jail and all of that. He then brings a real sense of menace to the movie and some kind.
And he looks so good also, right? At least in the flashback scenes. Raghuvaran was a very, very handsome guy. Link in the show notes. So put Chutney, South Indianized trailers. So there is a trailer of Speed as imagined to be narrated by Raghuvaran. Which is one of my favorite go-to videos, which I watch to now and then. It's extremely hilarious. So it's a pastiche of Raghuvaran style speak. He has his own unique way of speaking. Had his own unique way of speaking. But
I was just going to ask you, he's not alive.
He's not alive. Okay. It's been a while. I think it's been around 10 years since he died. But what a fantastic actor. And one of the standard repeating villains in Rajni films. And in a lot of great films like Mudalvan, I don't know if you've watched. Where or Nayak, it came out as Nayak. Yes. So he plays the chief minister who gets deposed, and he's so good in that. This is also a good time to remember what a great actor Raghuvaran was.
Yeah, R.I.P.
Enna Manik, nalla irkiya?
Baasha, Manik Baasha.
Yes, Manik Baasha. Enna vishayam thambi? Engitta edho pesanum sonniyame. Edha udavi theveya? Sollu enna vena seiren.
Okay, so Nitin, I have a little game for you.
Okay.
I've pulled out a couple of images, just like I went deep into the movie names on the theater screen in the song. I found a couple of, you saw all of those newspaper clippings. Yeah. And they have cricket mentions in one corner. So let's see if we can identify where this was happening. Because these must be real.
For the benefit of the audience. So there are a few scenes in the movie in Baasha where they're showing that through newspaper front pages they're trying to narrate the story of the Dawn, right? Like Baasha takes over, hideout, New Dawn takes over Bombay, Mark and
bomb
blast without a space, BOMBLAST.
One
bomb blast. Yes. All of these, by the way, were so I remember this in the original movie when it came. A lot of these headlines were in Tamil. Or in Hindi or whatever. I think when they remastered the movie and re-released it, and that is the version we saw, they've just, at one shot applied English newspaper clippings for all the languages and done a terrible job of it.
It's some horrible Photoshop.
Not even Photoshop. They've just, I think...
Yeah, this is like Windows.
They've opened PPT, taken screenshot of something and, copy-pasted it.
This is Paint, macha. MS Paint type of...
So you have Times of India's front page showing. So now... now explain what you sent me today.
Yeah. So I have the front page also has on the top right headlines from the sports from later in the thing. So let's look at the yellow one first.
Okay. So I can't read this very clearly, but it says
the first word, I don't know what it is. Expected
to be fit, but rain threat looms over second test too. Okay. Yeah. This could be pretty much this 2018, right?
Wait. You're talking. You think it might be a... the newspapers are fresh. Good twist. This extra twist on twist.
That's what I'm saying.
2017.
16, 17. So all of this is from 2017 for sure. Because the English headlines were not there in the original. I remember that. Right. I remember, I specifically remember reading Kadattal Mannan Baasha being written in Tamil. Kadattal Mannan literally means smuggling king. This was its own joke, by the way, the original version. So...
by the way, this is Ganguly. Ganguly expected to be fit. You can see the L and Y if you...
Okay, that's strange because that's even stranger because then they have tried to do some kind... No, this is not even a retro... No, this could be a retrofit. Actually, no, it's not a retrofit because Ganguly made his test debut in 1996 and Ganguly's test career ended in 2010. So it was between the two releases of Baasha. So this is a very bad retrofit. There are no other Gangulys who played cricket. So yeah, fail. Whoever did the Photoshop tried hard. But...
Okay, let's try the other one then.
Okay, again, it's about some player missing out. So there's Peterson.
Something
hopeful for today's ODI. Peterson hoping he'll sit out. Why will Peterson hope somebody will sit out?
Yeah.
No, these are very, very badly.
Not enough to identify who and what. But you can see the essay on that side.
Yeah, that's a Sahara. That's Sahara.
Yeah, that's Sahara. So it was from that time.
So this, by the way, India were wearing these Sahara blue jerseys in 2007. I remember that. 6-7 types. So this is in the middle of. Oh, actually, according to the movie's timeline, no, I'm not sure where 2007 comes in. Really, it doesn't make any sense.
Can't. Yeah,
it can't, because the story. The question is, there are two questions to ask. In the original movie, when was the Don in Bombay and when did he become an auto driver? In the remastered movie, when was he a Don in Bombay and when did he become an auto driver? I don't think 2007 is the answer for any of these questions. So then I'm not sure about this.
Yeah. This is just somebody has picked up, not put detailing.
Somebody has gone like full random. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
movie has to release. Just put some shit, go. Bomb blast.
Bomb blast. So this is an ODI series between England and India,
where Peterson hopes he will sit out, which is a headline that has never been written by anybody ever.
Or Peterson hopes the other guy was Peterson captain.
You will never hope somebody else will sit out, right? It's not the. It's a very.
What is it?
It's a very funky thing to say.
Yeah, random.
Yeah.
But this has to be a real headline anyway. I don't think that much effort somebody put to change headlines behind. So it's a real headline. It's just we don't know where it's coming from. Of course, this is also Times of India, so journalistic quality is anyway a bit suspect.
No. Even by TOI standards, this is very low. So yeah, this is a bad piece of Photoshop. Let's leave it at that. And editing or whatever it is.
So one thing I want to talk about, of course, Rajni is like outstanding throughout the movie. I did feel that some of the dialogue delivery when it comes to the Baasha version of the character, of course, the glasses like you mentioned, again super awesome. But every time he did that, that
yeah,
I found that a bit over stylized. I'm waiting for you to.
I completely reject your hypothesis.
Well, I just reject your hypotheses.
உள்ளே போ உள்ளே போ
It totally worked for me, man. Yeah, and it worked for all of Tamil Nadu. So yeah, you can run away to Kamal Hassan land with your natural acting.
With yours, yes.
No, also because it's a complete bold face, right? See, when you're seeing Baasha for the first time, you are only used to Manikam, the auto driver, who is this, right? And you know he's the jovial.
In fact, in theory, he's playing 3 characters. He's also playing Manik before Baasha.
Correct. Yeah, which is okay. It's a very generic sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then technically he's also playing Manikam after everybody knows that he is Baasha. So yeah, you could say 4 characters in all. Yeah. So, but in those few minutes, he has to really bring us up to speed with who Baasha is, right? And Baasha doesn't have any. There is no exposition as to who this Don was or what he was. Right? All you've seen till then is some negative shots. And then suddenly you're transported to Bombay, and he's going in a jeep somewhere, and he gets away inside a tunnel, and they're interrogating someone, right?
But a lot of good Bombay location shooting.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff was you can clearly tell is Bombay. They do in fact that big meeting between both of them is in front of Gateway.
Yes. Konjo ange parukanna.
Yeah, you can see the Taj in the background on the other side. Good Bombay location
even
shooting.
In that scene, right, the shirt that Rajnikanth is wearing, he's wearing a light blue shirt. I've never seen Rajnikanth wear those kinds of costumes, man.
Yeah.
He looks so good. They're very unusual costumes, by the way. Not just for the mid-90s. Even now, they would look. You would turn and look a second time as somebody, except maybe Ranveer Singh, right? If anybody else shows up in those costumes, you would turn and look a second time. But Rajni just pulls them off, right? And so good. That scene is also.
I like that whole choreographed dance between both the teams in that meeting. They all come, they drop their guns down, then half the people run to the other side, do a pat down, then come back, and full choreography before these two come forward and meet each other.
Yeah.
And he does the whole glasses thing.
கொஞ்சம் அங்கே பாரு கண்ணா Baasha, Manik Baasha.
So the way the movie was shot, they did the entire first half was shot at one shot basically in Chennai. The second half, which is the Bombay parts of them, by the way, were shot in Hyderabad, and I believe some of it was shot in Bombay. So the first scene that we see, which is the interrogation of Albert in the tunnel, apparently happened in Hyderabad. Okay, so on location, Rajnikanth had his costume and was given his beard and all his makeup and everything, and he was alone on the set apparently when the director came. And Suresh Krishna says it was very silent in that place, and you could see Rajnikanth was with his thoughts, right? And you're saying you could see that this person was turning into Baasha, the Don, right? He had everything ready. And you just had, some more costumes on the side and props on the side and everything. And this guy he could apparently see through the director, right? At least that's what the director felt. And Rajnikanth just felt it was not complete. He was like, something more is required. And then he looks at the props and he picks these glasses, which don't have frames.
Wow.
And he puts them on and takes them off a few times, right? And then he puts it on and says, okay, now I'm ready. This is Baasha. Let's do it. So those are those glasses. Never seen before or since in Tamil cinema. I think the only other time we've seen it in cinema is Morpheus, obviously, in Matrix.
Yeah.
Shows up with the same glasses. But and there is that scene in Raghuvaran's house where he turns his head after his father has been shot and the glasses fly off. So good. Great addition to the costume. I can't even imagine Baasha without the glasses, man.
Yeah, those glasses are super awesome, and the color also is great. It's not like the regular black glasses or whatever.
Yeah.
Like a reddish.
Yeah,
thing.
reddish.
In the location shooting, when you see them driving towards the bomb, they are driving through Bombay streets and all that. They pass the regular, I forget the name of that flyover. They pass the rain fight flyover.
Okay. Oh, okay.
That standard.
Classic bit of footage.
Every time you want to show Bombay in any movie, in South Indian movies, they pick that one. That flyover to show, because you can see the water on the other side. It's off the water exactly.
Got it. So for the benefit of our listeners, 23 years later, Rajnikanth was on that bridge beating up another villain in the rain fight sequence in Kala, which of course is, I would say, one of the best 5 minutes of Rajni awesomeness in recent times at least.
Is that the music to which you've been doing all your pumping up?
Absolutely. Yeah, my speed, when I run, my speed increases by a few kilometers per hour every time rain fight starts playing. What do you want to see next from Rajnikanth?
Oh, wow. Something even larger than life. Should he turn up in... oh no, it's going to be a very bad movie, but sure. Should he turn up in Brahmastra 2 or 3 as one of the big... the final god or the final... I don't know. Go ahead.
No, I would love to... I know it's never going to happen, but what's wrong in dreaming? I would love to see Rajnikanth and Kamal Haasan act together. In whatever, I don't care what it is. Someone like a Shankar is hemming the whole thing and is able to give both of them the right amount of screen space. It could work. I don't see it happening, but I would love it if it does.
No, that would be great to see. But I would go the other way. Instead of Shankar, I would say somebody like a Paranjit or whatever, who gives both of them the right thing to do. Otherwise, Shankar will just give them one robot and one other robot, and they are not seen.
I disagree there. I think Shankar would actually come up with two characters that pander to everyone, including to Rajni and to Kamal and their fans. The reason Shankar did Shivaji, by the way, was to convince Rajnikanth that he can do Endiran with him. So he had gone to Rajnikanth with the project saying, I want to do this robot movie with you. I wanted to do it with Kamal Haasan many years back, and it didn't work out. This was after Rajni had had a couple of recent failures and everything, and he was very cagey about getting new directors into his mix. So he said, you know what, that sounds too ambitious. Let's do a normal movie and then we will talk about this. So the normal movie was Shivaji, which of course was, blockbuster, and then paved the way. So Shankar is capable, or at least was capable of doing things like that. Of course, Shankar is a very different beast now. But I don't know who. I don't want to say Mani Ratnam, right? Maybe Kamal Haasan should direct both of them. That will be perfect too. Except he'll give Rajnikanth the smaller role. That would
complicated.
It'll become complicated.
That'll become complicated. I would say either you go. It has to be big either way. So it's either Shankar or it's some Paranjit who knows how to marry
James Cameron
characters to large size. Great. So that was us celebrating Rajni. Happy birthday to the one and only superstar. One episode of the podcast can't do justice to him, but I'm sure we'll keep revisiting his oeuvre and his filmography again and again. Please keep listening. Let us know what you thought of this episode. Like, rate, review our podcast. Send us an email at yointermission@gmail.com if you have any thoughts, or you can reach out to us on Twitter @yointermission. And we should be back soon with another episode.
In the meantime, please ப்ளீஸ் லீவ் கிரேட் ரிவ்யூஸ் ஃபார் திஸ் பாட்காஸ்ட். ஏன்னா நீங்கள் ஒரு ரிவ்யூ கொடுத்தா 100 ரிவ்யூ கொடுத்தா மாதிரி.
கரெக்ட். பாய்.